Are you feeling unmotivated, unappreciated, and uninspired about your work?
Are you feeling bored and going through the motions just to get the check?
Are you feeling the stress and emotional turmoil because of difficult coworkers or a toxic boss?
If you answered yes to any of these questions, then this episode is for you.
Hi, I'm Porsh.
And I'm Pat. Welcome to the Better Client Project. Today, we'll discuss a few topics that can help you deal with a toxic work culture. Welcome to the Better Client Project.
I am Porsh, Chief Creative at Brand Manila.
I'm Patricia, Brand Strategist at Brand Manila. And
We are sisters. The Better Client Project is a podcast where we discuss branding, team culture, creativity, and changing mindsets. It's all about communication and empathy.
because we want to help you become better clients and get better clients. See both perspectives because building successful relationships go both ways.
We are not immune to difficult situations being made more difficult by the people we work with or the people we work for. In fact, all of us at one point or another have experienced a toxic working environment, and more often than not, a toxic coworker or worse, your boss.
Today, we will tackle these issues and more. We will help you uncover what you can do to improve your situation and why quitting is not the only solution. So, Porsche, why is this such a pressing issue?
It's because we are living through an unusual situation in an unusual time in what the World Bank calls the deepest global recession in decades. Everyone is struggling financially, business owners, your boss, and coworkers. They are probably going through an emotional frenzy. We end up feeling frustrated, losing our cool, and saying things we don't mean to say. Even when we feel that we are doing our best, we feel that no matter how hard we try, we are not going anywhere or valued at all.
So, Porsche, what are the signs and symptoms of a toxic work culture? Can you elaborate more for our listeners?
It's when there is lack of communication, a disengaged workforce, blatant favoritism, dictatorial management techniques that don't embrace employee feedback. And when people take credit and let their ego take over, don't you just hate that?
I know.
Gossiping and clicks.
So, with these signs and symptoms you've discussed, have you experienced this as an employee?
Yes, I have. I worked abroad for over a year, and it was difficult for me because it was my first time away from family. And I was also young and idealistic and a little naive. Remember when I asked you to teach me how to use the washing machine
Yes.
before I left? And I was very eager to share my ideas, get to work and learn. Since I was excited, I finished tasks quickly. And when I was told that we are all expected to work overtime, maybe even slow myself down, since we all get paid anyway, do what they do and I'll be fine. What I didn't respect is that we'd work extremely long hours. We're talking about 10 to 16 hours a day, 6 days, sometimes 6 days a week. People didn't talk much and they really kept to themselves. And I also had the feeling that they were just waiting for me to make a mistake. I've spoken to some of my friends who have worked overseas and they experienced the same working environment. How about you, Pat? How have you dealt with a toxic situation?
Yes, so for my experience, I allowed my client to contact me any time of the day, and I was at their beck and call. I was hooked to my phone 24/7, waiting for their messages and calls, making sure all the requests are always attended to. This caused me to neglect my health and my relationship with food. I was stressed out. I've treated food not as a source of energy, but as a source of comfort. I would binge eat whenever I'm stressed out. I put myself and my needs at the least of my priorities. In turn, I expected the team to work hard as I am. I made them feel guilty when they don't follow my requests, even when they're about to rest. I expected them to do as I do, to be available any time of the day. I projected this energy to them, and I made the client's emergency my emergency. And we allowed this relationship to dictate our culture.
I remember those days.
How about you? How did you deal with this working environment?
Well, I evaluated my situation and looked at it differently. Instead of roadblocks, I saw opportunity. Opportunity in the accounts that were assigned to me. And this made me excited again. I took to the internet to learn new skills. I did video editing. I designed brand identity, trade show booths, store facades, and interiors. I love seeing them come to life and saw how people use the space. I experimented with new ideas and gave myself the latitude to explore and stretch myself. And that sustained me for a while until I was moved to a different housing situation. You see, housing was provided by the company I was working for. And from living at a walking distance from the mall and the grocery, I was transferred to a housing a place outside of like the suburbs, and I needed a car to get from one place to another. And then before I didn't know how to drive a car, so it was a difficult situation for me to find the time and learn to drive because I was spending time at work, uh, those long hours we spend at work. So I felt isolated and alone, and so I tried a little yoga to help make things better. I studied yoga through a DVD, and though I did that, it only sustained for me for a while, and the loneliness I felt was just too much. I was facing telltale signs of burnout, and living in an unfamiliar place away from family made things worse. My weight fluctuated and I was feeling signs of depression. That left me with no choice and made me evaluate my reasons for staying. Was I still happy with the work I'm doing? Is it contributing to my personal growth? Is it affecting my mental health? I was stressed out and I was burnt out. I was overworked. I was living an unhealthy lifestyle. And is this the life I truly wanted? Can I last another year of this? A few more months? A week? As the breadwinner, I consulted our mother and she said, if you're not happy anymore, then come back home. So I did.
I see. So you've exhausted all options before you finally decided at the very end that your situation is affecting your mental health and safety.
Yes. And to our listeners, see why it's important that you check in with the people in your circle you trust, those who will be directly affected by this change you're about to make. Figure out the repercussions of the decisions and what could even be the life changing effect of what you're about to do. Having a support system change in the changes you're about to make is vital, especially in this economic climate. Um, Also, remember, if you feel you are not safe, you're asked to compromise your values. And if they are encroaching on your basic rights, by all means, do what you must to protect yourself. Back to you, Pat. Care to tell us how you reflected on your situation and what you did about it?
So I felt stressed out. I was binge eating, like what I said. I felt overwhelmed and overworked, similar to yours. We were earning so much money, but why do I feel so unhappy? Isn't this the goal? I was crying out of nowhere. I was easily triggered. And when I feel stressed out, I couldn't breathe. My heart was beating so fast, and I think it even came to a point where you had to drive me to the emergency room. Remember that?
Yes, I did.
So I I luckily there was no reason to be alarmed, and my heart was okay. And that's when it hit me and I realized that, oh my gosh, this is a panic attack. I don't recognize this pat anymore. That's what I told myself then. I asked help from you because you noticed the changes that were happening to me, and it was a change that was alarming. After I realized what was happening, I sought help from a therapist, and that's when it all started. I was on fight or flight mode for many years without me realizing it. Like a car that's been overused for a long time, it's bound to break down. Because of this, I processed it with my therapist, and um, we discussed my situation and my triggers. I learned how to take care of myself first because I learned how to take care of myself first before I can take care of others.
To our listeners, see, I was one of Pat's triggers, and I also sought help from a therapist, and Pat and I reevaluated our relationship.
As closer a relationship is, especially when working together, we had to work hard on our relationship, like a couples therapy.
Yeah. I think I also read somewhere that some business partners in the US, they also went to therapy, and there's actually therapy targeted to businesses. And that's very progressive,
I agree.
like us, I guess. What else have you realized in your therapy and self-reflection, Pat?
I realized we needed to evaluate our relationship with our clients. Are we happy with the work that we are doing, and are we happy with what's happening? Do we see ourselves doing this long term, and why did the work we were once excited about now felt like a chore? We discuss where our company's future is heading, and in serving other people, we forgot about ourselves.
That's so Filipino that in our generosity, we tend to go beyond and that we forget ourselves. Can you share to our listeners what we did?
Okay, so we got into a meeting. By we, I mean the Brand Manila fam, and we started with transparency and vulnerability. We were honest and candid about what's not working and in what ways can we improve our working relationship. The four of us siblings working together discussed our issues with each other. We all agreed that everyone is unhappy with the work we are doing. This led us to search for ways that we can help each other and define the type of company we want to work in. That's the great thing about running the business and working with family. We can't give up easily. We had to face each other, so it's better to be blunt and honest. And it's easier to course correct when things aren't working. So there's this book I read called Leading Through Turbulence by Alan and Harriet Lewis. They spoke about why culture will drive the enterprise whether we like it or not. So they said culture isn't optional. And if the company doesn't define the culture, one of the two things is going to happen. Either the strongest personality in your organization will take over the company, or second, the unspoken culture will start running the show. Especially when where the culture is not defined or communicated at all. To be completely honest, culture is not a quote you paste on the wall. It's the values, shared goals, and the relationship we have with everyone in the company. How about you? What else have you learned through therapy and the books that you've been reading that our listeners can apply to themselves now?
Well, I've learned that it all begins with self-awareness. To improve a team's performance, when you are in a situation you can control, like for example, an existing unspoken culture of a company, these are important questions to ask. Do you focus on what you don't want? Do you wait for things to get better? Are you in a state of feeling constantly overwhelmed? Do you assume the worst? Do you feel victim to circumstances or people? Do you walk through life blaming others? When you are waiting for someone else to step up, behave differently, or so you can get something done or have a relationship be easier, let me tell you, dear, it's a long, soul sucking, arduous wait.
Hashtag real talk.
But here's the good news: you can change your culture, your satisfaction with your job, your family dynamic, the amount of energy you have in the morning, anything. Why? Because you do have control over you. It begins with you. From letting someone else take control of your situation and the responsibility of your well being to taking matters into your own hands. When you get in the driver's seat, you can now ask yourself better questions. How am I contributing to this situation or dynamic? Am I helping things to get better or worse? How am I showing up? What do I personally need right now to improve myself?
Thank you, Porsche. I think that put things in perspective. Is I think for me also, it's really important that we check in with ourselves and see our role in contributing to a toxic work culture, which perfectly sets up what else contribute to a toxic working environment.
Thank you for listening to the Better Client Project. If you like what you heard, subscribe to our podcast and refer us to a friend. Now back to Porsche and Pat.
Other than looking at ourselves, what else contributes to a toxic working environment?
I think this is where we need to define the difference between competition and collaboration. Competition is in our nature. We compete with each other, and there's a sense of personal fulfillment when we achieve something on our own, which feeds the ego. That you're better than the rest. And this, my friend, is the scarcity mindset at work.
Can you tell or describe to our listeners what scarcity mindset is?
Okay, so a scarcity mindset or a scarcity mentality is the belief that you will never be enough. Your action stems from fear, which makes you think that you will lose your job or position to someone else or someone better than you. This results in you not sharing your ideas, being suspicious of other people's motive, or simply serving yourself rather than the organization or the team.
I see. That makes total sense. It's also worth noting that competitiveness, when you are in a team to show off and be the best, is only serving yourself. Why? It's because in a team, you are there to work towards a common goal. If you are showing up for your self interest, figure out why. When you are leading with fear, it is going to be a lonely journey. Teams exist because there is a challenge too big to handle alone.
Exactly.
When we raise other people up, it does not make you anything less. Advocating for others does not take away your own accomplishments. There is enough success to go around. By lifting other people up, you are raising their vibrational frequency and in turn raises yours as well.
That perfectly describes what an abundance mindset looks like. From serving yourself to serving others, practice happiness for others rather than resentment. When a coworker, a friend, or a team leader does well or achieves a milestone, be generous with your praise because a win should be celebrated. Don't be a Kanye at the VMA stealing Taylor Swift's thunder. If you notice that you're not happy with someone else's success, reflect on what you're feeling. Is it jealousy, Do you feel threatened? What is the reason why you're feeling this way? That is why it goes back to self awareness. Collaborative work environment comes from an abundance mindset, from gratefulness rather than resentment.
Especially now that teams are finding it difficult to get everyone on the same page. It's important right now to help each other.
Yes, we are all in the same boat. Although not everyone is in the same headspace as you, when you notice that a team member or a friend is having some difficulty adjusting to the new normal, reach out if you feel that you have enough energy to spare and check in.
Yeah, and I remember there was a discussion with my friend. There was a question raised. It was about helping people. For her privacy, let's call her Fifi. Fifi. So Fifi noticed her colleague. Let's also give her a name. Didi. So Fifi noticed that Didi is struggling. So Fifi reached out to help Didi move things along. Fifi can tell that Didi is stuck. So Fifi suggested she try doing things differently. And that agitated Didi instead and says, I've tried that. I know what I'm doing. So when Fifi clearly sees that Didi did not, how does Fifi deal with that?
Is Fifi dealing with a know it all?
Um, Maybe let's say she is.
Okay, so we can look at it both ways. There may be situations where one thinks they know better than the other, when in fact both of them can learn from each other. So when they can learn from each other when they choose to collaborate, sorry. That's why it's important to notice what your intentions are for helping. Is it coming from a place of kindness and not because you want to expose Didi's incompetence? Does Didi feel safe to share her difficulty with Fifi? Or upon Didi's reflection, she feels like she knows everything and doesn't need any help. We may have been a Didi or a Fifi at one time or another. That is why it's important to have a beginner's mindset.
What can you explain to us what a beginner's mindset is?
Okay, so having a beginner's mindset is when we embrace learning. You know that we don't know it all. Being a know it all stems from a scarcity mindset. It is when you feel like you know everything there is to know about a particular thing that you don't need other people's help or insight. This is scarcity mindset because we limit ourselves.
I see. This reminds me actually of the wisdom paradox. The more you learn, the less you know.
Exactly. That is why in an abundance mindset, we crave for learning and growth. That there is always room for improvement. That is why two heads are better than one, three heads are better than two, and so on. Collaboration makes it happen.
I agree. Collaboration is key. That rhymed. Can you describe so listeners know what conditions should be met in cultivating a collaborative environment?
Okay, so first is to ensure that everyone is on the same page about what their goals are and everyone is in agreement that these goals are what is required for the success of a project or a desired outcome. Second, a safe environment where everyone can contribute, express ideas, and be creative without being attacked by the people within the group. Third, each member encourages and empowers each other, especially when faced with a difficult situation. Fourth, knowing each other's weaknesses and strengths, we are unique individuals with different sets of weaknesses and strengths. That is why, in working together, we complement each other. Knowing when one can be in a position to help the other, and inversely, knowing when to ask for help. Achieving and working towards a shared goal or target because you celebrate each other's success. We are unique individuals, and that is why in working together, we complement each other. Our best resource is each other.
I love that. Our best resource is each other. Cultivating a culture of learning.
I guess that's why our dynamic works too, even though it took us a while to navigate our working relationship.
Yes, we are each other's trigger.
Yes, we
The
are.
eldest and the youngest in the family are bound to get on each other's nerves. It can be helped. What we what we do to improve our working relationship is we strive to understand where the other is coming from.
Yes, and we improve because we discover that our miscommunication actually roots from how we receive and give feedback. I've learned this through one of the books I'm reading called Thanks for the Feedback. From that book, I learned that we have to assess the feedback given to us. Whether it's appreciation, coaching, or evaluation, it's not an attack. I admit that before, most of our energetic discussion is because I treated feedback as a criticism and take your input as an attack to my capability. I have learned and accepted that feedback is also a form of learning. I now treat feedback as something helpful to my growth. I still struggle, of course, here and then, but that book helped me a lot to distinguish how I receive and give feedback. And another important thing to mention that there are three kinds of feedback. So one is appreciation, second is coaching, and third is evaluation. So appreciation is a form of thanks or that I see you. I know how hard you've been working. Coaching is aimed to trying to help someone learn, grow, or change, while evaluation tells you where you stand. It's an assessment, ranking, or rating. When someone tells you that you need to improve on the get go and you feel discouraged, like what happened to me, that your efforts are not seen or appreciated, it's because you're craving for appreciation first. Recognizing what type of feedback is being given to you will help you accept feedback better. The mismatch of the feedback given to you and what you are craving for contributes to the distortion in interpreting how you receive it. Now, for the givers of feedback, I'd like to share that you should be clear in your intentions as to why you're giving the feedback to your employee or teammate. So you will be both in the same headspace when you discuss it. It will also help you avoid miscommunication and that you both can maximize your learning from each other. Remember, we are dealing with humans. Each form of feedback satisfy a different set of human need. That's why empathy and transparency is something we need to practice to help us improve when communicating with each other.
I noticed most of our conflict arises from when I provide feedback when you're clearly craving for appreciation. Also, a reminder when getting to a heated discussion, let cooler heads prevail. When someone is complaining, try to understand the request behind it. For example, you're not listening to me. Their actual request might be, please acknowledge what I am saying. Notice when someone is looking for appreciation and not a breakdown of what you did wrong, what they did wrong. Take it from me because I've made this mistake more often than I can remember. In a rush to save time, I skip the appreciation part and go straight to the breakdown. Knowing the difference between appreciation, coaching, and evaluation is necessary to for a collaborative and harmonious environment. It's through self-reflection that we can identify what our intentions truly are. Knowing yourself and your boundaries allow you to be compassionate when needed. We talk about boundaries because it is important to protect your energy, knowing what or when you can allow yourself to be exposed to things and situations. When you learn to manage your energy by setting boundaries, you become aware of what you can and can't handle. Have you noticed that no matter how great people were, how talented, how successful, if they didn't take care of themselves, treat people well, and own their life, they could only go so far. Often than not, things fall apart. They burned out. They burned other people out. They got stuck and lost their edge. That's why it's so important to start with internal stuff. The situation we are in right now is scary and uncertain for businesses, business owners, leaders in the company, parents, employers, and students. When you take care of your bodies, your mind, and really felt and listen to your emotions and the energy surrounding you, your environment, it allows you to do more. You can tap into your personal power where you can be in a position to influence. Take control of the situation with positive energy. You can show up with more intention and pay attention to the real reason someone in your team, your boss, your sibling, your parent, children are acting the way they are. You notice more and have access to through your own struggles. You become more empathetic and kinder. When you start paying attention to your needs and bravely face challenges and come from a place of good intention, you become attuned and present to what people are requiring of you, within reason, of course. Everyone has their own struggles. Know that we are dealing with humans, not screens, not numbers, not statistics. Then we can start fostering a culture of mutual support and compassion, communication, and connection. So start with you. Work your work on yourself and your self-awareness before you can lead others. Reflect on your intentions. Is it coming from an abundance or scarcity mindset? How are you showing up? Is it with a positive energy or not? Because how you show up at work, at home, is contagious. Other people tend to reflect your energy. If they are not, use the power within you. And when you are present and attuned to your thoughts and emotions, you will also have the ability and capability to read the room and communicate better. Take responsibility of the situation. When you are taking care of yourself, setting healthy boundaries, you can protect your energy. So you can focus on helpful, productive actions, especially when someone is really testing it.
All the things we discussed today are ways to tell if you can work with what you have. Consider the areas of improvement you can work on. Cultivate a culture of learning. And don't forget to ask for help when needed. See
See
you
you
on
on the
the
next
next episode.
episode. Thank you for listening to the Better Client Project, a podcast produced by Brand Manila.
Follow us on our socials, and we hope to talk to you. Tell us your stories
Ask us for advice.
or give suggestions. We'd like to hear from you.
See
See
you
you
on
on
the
the
next
next
episode.
episode.